Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Upper Deck. And just had to put a little quick promo in for Yankified, our friend Donald's show. I did that totally on purpose. So glad to see so many of our friends in the chat. So here we are today. Pitchers and catchers report next week. So less than 7 days until that. And here we are talking about the same old crud. Still don't have the holes filled that we're supposed to. I know there's been plenty of talk from the guys this week about Hal and his ridiculous backpedaling. And I don't know why any of us would be surprised. And Cashman has never been more quiet. And here I was giving him credit like, oh, he's doing some really secret deals. And so he's avoiding the press for that reason. He doesn't want to get anything out. And none of that is friggin' true. And here we are with no answers to the dangling questions, having the same old conversation. And I am just through. I am just so exhausted from this nonsense. Sierra, hey, what do you want to say about it?
Well, first of all, good morning, Lynn. Good morning, chat. I was starting to feel good about this offseason, and then I woke up and I realized that pitchers and catchers report on the 13th or 14th or whatever, or for the Yankees, they report super early, actually.
Right.
And then I started to think about what we did acquire, what holes we haven't filled yet, and it really got me thinking. Will we win the AL East? Can we make it to the playoffs? Absolutely, because we have Aaron Judge, and that's all we really need, right? However, I am so freaking concerned about the postseason. And I know it's a 162-game-long season, and maybe I shouldn't be looking that far ahead, but that is the goal, right? The goal is to get to the postseason, make a World Series run, or maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. So I started to think, if we make it to the postseason, as of right now, the only person we can rely on, if he is healthy, is Giancarlo Stanton, because we don't know what Aaron Judge is going to do come postseason, because he's not the same player. Once the calendar flips to October 1st, Aaron Judge is gone. Austin Wells, it's his sophomore season, and we all know that's a sophomore slump. It usually happens. I don't want it to happen, but that's just the reality of baseball. Anthony Volpe, did he show up in the postseason when we needed him? Absolutely. But it was a small sample size. You don't know if it's going to happen again. Jazz Chisholm was completely absent in the World Series, in my personal opinion.
Nope.
Paul Goldschmidt, he's coming off his worst career season ever. Okay? I'm talking batting. His glove is still there. Great. Freaking fantastic. Cody Bellinger is coming off a horrible season. Cody Bellinger was not what the Cubs expected him to be. And please, do not come for me, because I know I said I was excited for Cody, and I still am. But it doesn't change the fact that we don't know what we're getting come postseason. And then there's Jason Dominguez, who has only played in 14 major league games. So you don't know what you're getting in the regular season, let alone the postseason. And they've already said he's playing left field, which is a huge concern for me in general, but that's a whole nother conversation. So at this point, I'm frustrated because we still don't know who's playing third base or second base, because whatever one Jazz plays, someone else has to play the other base. And according to Aaron Boone, we are all insane for counting out DJ LeMahieu, which if I'm insane, then that bubble-blowing, nose-picking weirdo has lost his damn mind. Because, yes, DJ LeMahieu 2019 was an amazing player. But the last 2 seasons, DJ LeMahieu's foot is barely hanging on. And we don't know if he's going to be healthy this season or not. If he comes back and he proves us all wrong, great. But if I was in the Yankees front office, I would have already went out and got someone just in case he's not. I would have made DJ the bench utility guy like he was supposed to be when we freaking signed him. But no, we don't know what we're talking about. Only Aaron Boone does. And Hal basically backpedaled and said, just kidding, we're not spending money. We lied to you. And that irritates the crap out of me. So anyway, that's how I feel at this point.
Yeah, and all of that, excuse me, and so much more inside of me that I hope my voice will let me get out. Lori, you're 100% correct. Aaron Boone's remark was just a tell of what we already know. It's the turn the corner, turn the page, pat stupid, stuff he says that he thinks is appeasing everybody. And he should know by now that it doesn't. It just makes us more angry. Um, DJ is at most a bench piece. He is not a starter. And by at looking at things now, it's going to be a race to the finish to see who's on third base opening day. And it's looking more and more like DJ is in the conversation for that. Not just because of what Boone said, but others are starting to say it as well. The thought of a platoon between Cabrera, DJ, and Peraza is ridiculous. We're the New York Yankees. We made it to the World Series last year. Why are we in a position now where we're talking about cobbling together one player out of three, one of whom is toes out of the door for his career? It makes and one of whom has had his head screwed up by the system, and the other guy is a great super utility player, but I wouldn't say that he shines at third base in any particular way. And so here we are again, and the things that happened this week really show their colors. And Sierra, I was talking to you before we jumped on about how kind I've been about the off season and the moves made. If I could turn back time, and go back on Four Trade Express's show where I gave a glowing A- to Cashman for so far for the off season, my answer would be so much different. And just in the last 2 weeks, because now more names are popping up, which we'll get into, but it's the same kind of thing. They're either, in their mid to, borderline upper 30, going into the upper 30s. They had a bad last season. They come with injuries. It's the same old, same old. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right, Lori, that it just seems like they're never willing to go right in. Dollar Tree fill-ins, 100%. And even on its face, it was exciting. And I'm going to put Max Fried to the side because he's not part of the rant I'm going on. I think Cole is going to be in contention for that number one spot, and we'll see how that falls out. But now the names were exciting, right? Okay, we were going for Bellinger. We were hoping we would. When are we signing Bellinger already? And then you brought us back to reality just now, Ciara, right? Um, Goldschmidt. Oh, hey, I know him. He's a good guy. He's a good player. He's had a hell of a career until you really look at Goldschmidt. Not the full package. I'm going to say it again. We really slept at first base, and we're now still sleeping on third base. And with both corners of the horn vulnerable, I don't know that we're going to make it if we make it, to the wild card. If we're going to be wild card candidates, I see reporters projecting upper 80s, 80s for the wins this season, and it doesn't shock me that they're saying that. You look at some projections going on, which we'll go into deeper. We're not looking so good, even with the guys that got us to the World Series. So there's just so much to be concerned about, and this Hal and Cashman always have to be turning into the dastardly villain. They say something good, we feel better, and then they backpedal. And luxury tax, schmuxury tax. They can afford to go over the threshold a little bit. And but you know what? They lost a lot of the heavy, no pun intended, heavy hitters. We know full well the two that are still dangling in the wind for unknown reasons. Alonso, who we should have gotten, instead of Goldschmidt, and Bregman's still out there. What the hell are they waiting for? And so um, let's just talk about where you think the moves could be made, because we're going to walk you through some of the more recent names. I think we're all kind of tired about talking about Arenado and Arise and, other guys that we've been talking about for weeks now. And just this week, probably even the other day, two new names came up. Not new. You're all gonna know the name. It's Kike Hernandez and Johan Moncada, and apparently they're interested in them. What do you got to say about that, Ciara?
Yeah, real quick before I even jump into that. So the whole luxury tax thing, it's going to drive me insane because the Yankees made $679 million in profits in 2024. Okay. They were one of the highest. I think the only one higher was the Dodgers as far as profits go for 2024. So for Hal Steinbrenner to sit there and act like we can't afford to go over the luxury tax for one season is insane, because the way that it works is if you go over it one season, you're fine. It's when you continuously go over it that they start imposing all of these, taxes and rules and blah blah blah, and it goes up every season. Whatever. Like I don't care. You have the money, you're making the money. Stop bitching and whining. Could you imagine how much more money you would make if you won the World Series? How much more profit would you make if you won the World Series? That's like let's stop and think about that for a second. But anyway, I saw the article, regarding Kike Hernandez and Yoan Moncada, and I thought it was interesting because is it smoke and mirrors again? Just like all the other names have been, right? Like so far, I'm going to go back to the whole Caleb Durbin thing. They made us feel like Gleyber had to go because Caleb Durbin was going to be our next best thing. He was going to be the starting second baseman moving forward. And then traded him away. Was it a good trade? Absolutely. I'm not upset about it. But then that still leaves, there's either a hole at second or third. And to your point, are we going to platoon DJ and Oswaldo Cabrera and Oswald Peraza? Like, that seems insane. Now, Yoan Moncada, he's what, 30 years old? He is injury prone. That is my biggest concern regarding Yoan Moncada. If you look at his injury history, he pretty much missed all of 2024. He played 12 games.
Yep.
He missed sometime in 2023 for his back, 2022 for hamstrings, for his oblique, 2019, 2018 for hamstrings, 2017 for shin. He really has only had one healthy season. Fans kill Giancarlo Stanton every season for his injuries, even though he is one of the most productive members of this lineup. Again, and I've said it, I think I've said it every week since the offseason started. If you look at June, we missed a whole month of June of Giancarlo Stanton, and that is when the Yankees tanked for the entire month. To me, there's clear correlation there. So with that being said, if you bring on someone like Yoan Moncada, I don't see how that's going to make the fans happy when the guy is always injured. His projections are okay, for 2025, but that's if he plays, right? He's projected to hit 241, 301 on base, 388 slugging with a 689 OPS and 7 home runs. But that's if he plays. Now, Kike Hernandez. Listen, I'm going to go on record here. I would take Kike Hernandez over DJ. I would take him over Yoan Moncada. I would take him over Alec Bohm. I would take him over any of the names thrown out there simply for the fact that he can play in the postseason. Because like I mentioned earlier, I'm not concerned about the regular season because I feel like with how weak the AL is right now, I think we can make it to the postseason without any issues. I'm concerned about once we get there, who is going to step up and hit the ball. Kike Hernandez is a postseason legend. I can look past his regular season numbers because he's also a utility guy who's going to show up and put in that work and do the thing. And he's not going to cost you a whole lot of money. His contract last season, he was making $4 million. Let's be so for real right now. We can't afford $4 million.
No, and Lori, thanks for the reminder that the Yankees are worth $7 billion, and that's $2.5 billion more than the Dodgers. I guess the only difference would be that the Dodgers are going to have a lot of debt at the end of some contracts with all the deferrals they've made. And maybe that's the point where they do sell the team, but who's going to buy them and carry that debt? So we have all this money. What the hell are we waiting for? You could afford the tax. Just do it. When was the last time that they even exceeded the luxury tax? I don't know. I'm curious if you or anyone in the chat
We
knows.
since
It's
it's
just
been
not,
imposed, because it's still relatively new, we
yeah,
haven't.
right. So and we just got rid of Soto, who would have been like, they would have paid for him even if it was this late in the game. They would have paid for him, and tax threshold be damned. um so it's just, they I don't know, do they lose attention and focus and motivation? Is this like a winter effect on the brain? I don't know, but if we're looking at Kike and Makata at this point, and they have not been coming up in any conversation that any Yankee broadcast that I've listened to, including our guys on Pinstripe Chronicle, unless they mentioned them recently, um, like Friday. I just
No,
don't
like
understand.
this article, like it just came out yesterday, and it kind of blew my mind, to be completely honest.
Yeah, it blew mine as well. I didn't check the date on it when I saw it, but and they're not even, if you were to put Kike and Mankata together, just on the numbers, there's not such a huge difference from them, but it's looking like that if Mankata stays healthy, and again, we're bringing on a guy that we need to be worried has to stay healthy. I'd say that we win in the major league for the guys that we have to say that about already. Why at this late stage of the game, with spring training looming, they're already loading the bus. The bus has been loaded. You saw it on the Yankees feed. When they can't talk about anything else, let's talk about Heel's trip to his home country, and go through the tour of that, and then you get pictures about loading up the truck with all the gear. You're not getting us to pivot if that's the goal there. I'm glad Heel got to go home and be with his family and all of that. But if that's what you're putting out there, with pitchers and catchers coming, I think the ticker I saw yesterday was 7 days away, then you're really not fooling anybody. That feed should be full of news, and it's happening for everybody else. I have my favorite reporters on notification alert, and my heart stops every time. And I feel like now they're like Lucy pulling away the football from Charlie Brown. Like use that reference all the time. I'm so excited. Oh, what is Feinstein saying? Oh, the Dodgers have blah blah blah. The Orioles have blah blah blah. It's never breaking news for us. And I read another article. I read so many articles this week because I was homesick that I don't even remember who wrote what. But it was a comparison of numbers of trades in the off season. And the Yankees by far are embarrassingly low, obviously compared to the Dodgers, but also compared to teams like the Orioles, the Blue Jays, teams in our division, the Red Sox. We are really not showing up this off season. So, anyone that watched Maz's show a few weeks ago, that A+ is now a solid C, and so, and maybe it'll come up to a B+, but all the things you did really mean nothing. Have they improved the team? We've been saying, oh, these are good improvements. We're going to be more solid on solid ground. And now I'm just more and more suspect of it. I rode the glory train with everybody, but now, and the way you just laid it down, Ciara, looking just around the infield, I'm really not confident whatsoever. And then there was another name that was thrown in the mix, and that was Julio Iglesias. And
Jose.
so Jose Iglesias, yeah, not the singer.
I mean, he is a singer, but
He is a singer, but not that singer. Oh, Lynn did the Lynn thing. Okay.
Listen, not for nothing, Jose Iglesias, his song "Oh My God," and I know I shouldn't admit this as a Yankee fan, but that is on my gym playlist. That song gets me hype.
Traitor.
It hits, it gets the serotonin going, and it really works when you're on the treadmill and you just gotta focus. So I'm just saying.
Oh my God. To all the teams I've loved before. That he's not that guy. So,
No.
um, oh my. What can I blame it on this week? By now, everyone just knows it's just me. Love me anyway. Please.
But not for nothing. So you mentioned we're headed down to Tampa, right? We're headed down to spring training. We're ready to go. Like baseball is back. Okay, like we still have a 6-man rotation, and the Yankees are pretty desperate to move Marcus Stroman at this point, and everybody and their mother knows it. And I think that's a bigger issue that the Yankees are just glossing over. And I go back to that $679 million that they made in 2024. You're telling me that Marcus Stroman's $18 million is what's stopping you from making a move. That is just so asinine, in my opinion. Like $18 million, you made $679 million. If you were to actually go out and make moves, you could probably go over $700 million in 2025 because Yankees fans show up. Like not just at home, like Yankees fans show up on the road. They show up everywhere. We are some of the most loyal fan base, whether it's because we were born into it or because we started watching baseball late and we realized we wanted to be a part of a great franchise. Like it is what it is. The fans show up. So
Yep.
the $18 million, like that just blows my mind at this point.
Right.
It's stupid. Also, are we going to have a 6-man rotation? Like obviously I'm a Marcus Stroman girly, but I'm being realistic here. We can't have a 6-man rotation. It doesn't work. It doesn't work with rest days. It doesn't work with the schedule. Like we're not the Dodgers. Okay. We don't have the Japanese pitchers in our rotation who need that extra day. We got to figure it out here, people. We got to make something happen. And you know what? You can't just take someone who's been starting and throw them back in the bullpen. You can't take Heel or Schmidt or Stroman and just shove them back in the bullpen because that's not who they are. That's no longer who they are unless you're looking at like piggybacking two starting pitchers off of each other, which seems even dumber. Like when I say that out loud, that sounds stupid.
Right.
So I don't know what they're doing at this point, but Jose Iglesias is also not the answer for me. He's 35 years old. Did he do some good things for the Mets last season? Yes. I will give him his props. But the Mets basically just replaced him with a younger version of him and Nick Madrigal. So why would we go out and sign him? You know what I mean? Like that seems like a waste of money in my opinion. I would still take Kike Hernandez over him as well. I would probably even take Yoan Moncada and his broken ass back over him at this point. So I don't know.
Yeah. And you would take them, either one of them, over Arenado, who we've been talking about for weeks and weeks and weeks. I'm
starting to get a little more sold on Arenado, but
the contract,
it's never going. It's not for me. It's never going to happen. Like if it was going to happen, I feel like it already would have.
Yeah, I mean, he's coming with the $74 million. The Cards would have to eat part of that, but presumably whoever is looking to get him is going to have to eat part of it too. And Mr. Oh no, I can't step over the line. He's just not going to do that. And then Arraez keeps coming up in the conversation. And the thing is, and I think I've said this, for the past several weeks now, we have yet to get, and putting the pitchers aside because they have one role, we have yet to get both sides player. They're either good with the bat, but they're like either, if we're lucky, meh in defensively, or we have the opposite, and they're stellar on the field and bad and not so great, or bad, straight up bad at the plate. We lost out on those both sides guys, and this is what we're left with: slim pickings and dumpster inventory. So I just think that and Arraez is, so the thing with him, as everyone knows, is his bat. And we know that the big worry, at least for us, armchair managers and owners here, are really thinking about who the hell are we going to put in leadoff this year. Arraez could be that guy. But, Ciara, you made a great point when we were chatting before we got on. might as well, and should have. This is a tale. If you get him, you're going to learn that you should have kept Glaber, because go ahead and tell everybody about the defense.
Listen, his defense is worse than Glaber Torres, okay? And you guys all hate Glaber Torres. Rightfully so, right? I'm the only Glaber defender left in the world, and that's totally fine with me. Arise has worse defense than Glaber, and if we sign him and he loses us games, I'm coming out swinging every single week. I'm just throwing that out there. I've never, obviously, I'm kidding. Like, I would want him to do good with us, but at the same time, like, I'm kind of petty, and I feel like I would remind everybody how much crap they talked about Glaber Torres if this does happen. I get that he would be a good leadoff hitter, but to your point, Lynn, we need an all-around player. We need someone who can play defense and hit the ball. And that's why I have concerns about other people, because like I said, Goldschmidt, he's fantastic career, right? But his numbers last season were not good. They were the worst he's ever had, but he still has a good glove. So like, okay, so we have good defense at first, right? But that still leaves a hole in the lineup. That's where my concern is. Like, we're defensively, we are a better team right now, but offensively, we're not. You lost Soto's production. You lost second half Glaber's production, not to mention postseason Glaber and Soto's production, right? And we haven't replaced that because, again, Goldschmidt is an unknown. Bellinger is an unknown. Jazz Chisholm, very small sample size last season, but he wasn't there in the postseason. No. And again, I'm going to go back to it. We can only rely on Giancarlo Stanton at this point in the playoffs. That's not fair to the fans, and it's not fair to Stanton either.
It isn't, and we're going to get to projections in a bit to back all of this up and just even add another layer to it. But let's talk about the other two names that were literally in everything I read this week. So you referenced Bohm earlier. Mm-hmm. Do you want to go a little bit into Bohm before I go to this last name here?
Yes. So for the reason I would want Kike Hernandez on my team is the reason it's the complete opposite for Alec Bohm, okay? The guy doesn't show up in the playoffs. And again, I get that we have to make the playoffs, but I'm not concerned about making the playoffs. The AL isn't as tough as the NL this season. It's been very clear based on signings that have happened and just on what other teams are doing. We will make the playoffs. I'm not concerned about that whatsoever. But if you're bringing on another guy who cannot hit postseason, it doesn't make it worth it for me. Also, why are the Phillies so desperate to move Alec Bohm? What did they know that we don't know? It's like the Yankees with Marcus Stroman, right? They're so desperate to get rid of him. The Phillies are so desperate to get rid of Alec Bohm. What is it about that guy that they don't want him in their locker room anymore? That should be a concern.
Well, I mean, he was benched in the postseason because of how badly he was doing. So, that's another check in the box for why Cashman would be interested in him because it makes no sense. FJ was asking if he's still on the market. I mean, as of yesterday, he was. So unless there was a move, unless I didn't get a notification from Passan, Feinsand, Sherman, Hoke, or Curry, which my phone rings for. But I do believe so. And then last but not least, Willie Castro. So he's a utility guy. He's a super utility guy. He's only 27. Wow. Somebody under 33 years of age. Sign him up. But he's another one, though, that, he tanked in the second half of the season. And the Twins might be looking to lift him off their budget. So that would be another reason why it's possible that Cashman is in talks with him.
I mean, so he did just sign a 1 year, $6.4 or $5 million just to avoid arbitration, but that doesn't mean he's not available for trade.
Exactly. Right? And that, the Twins gave in and just did that. And yeah, exactly that. They could still swoop in. Anyone can. And again, so here's where he's not a both sides player per se. But, I would say that only because he apparently doesn't hit the ball hard. And you know what? to me, I'll take that. I'll take that. If you're hitting the ball, if you're not hitting for power, I'm not mad at that. I'm a bit tired of that, actually. First of all, it leads to injuries. We see that with all the power hitters, and Stanton top of mind. If he's getting on base with those small ball sort of things, I'm not mad at that. So and obviously he's a solid fielder, and being a utility guy, he could be the third baseman, and could be somewhat of an answer. The chat is really quiet as we talk about Castro. What's your take? That makes me nervous. What's your take,
I
Sarah?
I wouldn't hate a trade for Castro. So thinking back to 2024, he made his first All-Star game. He was a finalist for Gold Glove in the utility category. Um, he kind of gives me IKF vibes, but with a better bat, right? His numbers weren't horrible. He ended the season with a 247 average, 331 on base percentage, 385 slugging, 716 OPS. And to your point, like, is it cool to see home runs? Yeah, sure. He put up 12 last season, so whatever. But we have Stanton, we have Judge, we have Bellinger, we have Wells, who could potentially be that home run hitter. I'm not necessarily concerned about that at this point. I just need people who get on base. And don't hit into double plays, because we hit into the most double plays, or at least Aaron Judge hits
Yes.
into more double plays than anybody else in the league. So, and that's where I'm going to bring it back to Luis Ariz. Congratulations. Great leadoff hitter. But he leads off, gets on base, and then Judge hits into a double play, and then Ariz turns around and makes an error in the other half of the inning. So does it really matter at that point?
So all this time I've been saying his name wrong. So sorry, Arise. I recall it saying Arayes, but Arise is a better roll call name. So there's that. Maybe it's written in the stars. But before before we pivot away from this trade thing, we know that Polanco's gone, but I don't know of anyone I've spoken to of my Yankee fan friends that was really interested in Polanco. And Ha-Seong Kim went to the Rays. So, I still think, I'm happy to hear that you think they'll make it to the postseason. I do too. If I'm trying to pull away from my rant and disappointment and anger that I've been having the past few days, I think that's true. But I do think that we can't sleep on some teams that we were not worried about last year in our division. Red Sox have gotten some, new players that could be a factor. For example, and I'm keeping one eye open on them. The Orioles probably are almost on par with us in terms of where we stand at the moment with the off season. So I'm not so sure it's going to be the glide that it's been.
Don't forget the Blue Jays. They just signed Max Scherzer. Woo!
Woo! Okay, well, good luck with that.
I love it.
But so before we go on to the next thing, I just want to shout out our friends in the chat. So Lori, Jonathan, John the Beagle Dad, FJ, Jonathan, Numbers Guy is back, everybody. It's over. Jordan, Lou, who else did we get here? It's over. Great. And you know what? Please change your name, because when I read that, it makes me think about us, and I don't want those two words together. And let's see. And we got Raziel. Thanks to Raziel for being here and for promoting slapping the likes and Lou. And FJ's last point from what we were just saying is, yeah. I mean, clearly, yeah, he still puts up the numbers even when he's hitting into the DPs, but he should be hitting all the marks. He's already in the Hall of Fame, and we know it. But I'll digress on that. So why don't we spend a minute on on projections. See that puzzled look on that girl's face? That's me. Um, so if you're gonna go on Fangraphs and look at their zips, some of the projections aren't so good, or at least not as good as you would expect them to be. So, Judge, for example, so they're saying that his production is going to dip, and that by 3 or 4 wins, and so and they're saying that overall as a team, the position players are projected for 23.3 WAR, about 10 fewer wins from their 2024 total, and they're saying much of that is due to Soto. And I'm just going to pause right there because there's only so much you could blame on Soto not being there anymore. And so I'm putting it out there before spring training even starts, before the season starts. We can't keep using it as, well, it's because we lost Soto. That's not the excuse. There are guys already on the team, and guys we should have gotten, and maybe 1 or 2 that would help. We just over that, to me, that overall says Soto or not. Our production was not good offensively or defensively, or at least on par with what it's used to being. We need to improve, and everybody knew it coming into the off season. Yet here we are. So Aaron Judge dipping a bit. He's still going to be the best in the league. On most of the stats anyhow. That, I don't think that's the impact, unless it's so big that it's going to impact the team, because wherever Judge goes, so does the rest of the team. So, Ciara, what kind of projections do you want to take note of? Because I know you also were looking there.
I have no concerns with Judge dipping. Can we expect him to put up the same numbers he's been putting up every year for the rest of his career? Probably not. He is getting up there in age. Or not yet, but he will be getting up there in age. He's like 33. He'll be 33, right? Something like that. I'm not concerned about Judge. Also, whoever made this graph clearly doesn't understand the law of science. Judge is about to have a baby. And whenever athletes have babies, they just turn into a whole different player. Like that dad mode kicks in and they are just like on it, which means Anthony Rizzo will probably also have a bounce back season wherever the hell he goes, because he's also having a baby, but whatever. If Judge doesn't put up the numbers he put up last year, he's still going to put up good numbers. I still see him in the 40 to 50 home run range. I still see him being in the race for MVP, Silver Slugger, all that good stuff. And you know what? Not for nothing. It's time for everyone else to step up, right? Judge does his part in the regular season. Do I need him to step up in the postseason? Absolutely. However, everyone else needs to get on board. We need everyone to be productive this season, right? Like, it can't just be Judge and it can't just be Stanton in the postseason. I'm hoping Wells doesn't go through a horrible sophomore slump. I'm hoping this is the season that Volpe everything clicks for an entire season, because we last season we saw 2 different versions of Volpe. Mm-hmm. Hoping we get a full season with Jazz. So I'm so curious to see what him running the bases actually looks like. Also with Dominguez and Volpe running. If Boone and the front office do not utilize those 3 and their speed this season, we have issues. We need to be able to run the bases a little bit more this season. So if we're worried about them running in front of Judge, don't put them in the top of the order. That's how I feel about it. And I'm, you know what? I'm hoping that Goldschmidt and Bellinger bounce back from the bad seasons they had last year, and that this change of scenery is what they needed. Because defensively, we are much better, right? Love Soto, have all the love in the world for that guy, but defensively, he wasn't good. And everyone knows that. Again, love Gleyber Torres, biggest fan. Defensively, not a good player. So we have improved defensively, but I need to see them be able to run the bases, because that's where we also struggled last season. And I need to see everybody in the lineup be productive at this point.
We all need that, and we're getting closer and closer to thinking like we're not going to get that. But I do think that raising Austin Wells is very fair, even without what the projections are showing. It does seem to be a thing in the sophomore slump. And you could, on one hand, you could say, but he was a runner up for rookie of the year, which is a big deal, and we'll get to Heel in a minute. So, but you know what, they still, the game is still mental, and he doesn't have Trevino anymore, and so he's going to have a new platoon guy, which is no longer in effect with Trevino, and who is that going to be? So I could certainly see Wells having some trouble. I do think that Wells is another one that will light up towards I think he's going to come in like gangbusters, and then going to be quiet just in time for, should he be on the All-Star team or not? And then as we gear towards getting into the postseason, I think he'll show up better. That's my projection. I am not a statistics person. I just feel like he has it in him. And Chisholm, the thing that was really pissing me off in the postseason was he can slug a bat. And he didn't audition well in the postseason, and in some ways, again, at the plate, do such a stellar job of saying, hey, here's where you want to keep me. And I expect that to change with him too. I think it's that second year of mystique that we'll see something better. Now Volpe, I'm not so confident about year 3 for him. I'm glad that he showed up ish in the postseason, but we talked about him a lot last year during the season, and he isn't the phenom that he was when he first came up. And so it's going to be interesting to see which way the gate swings on him. And so, hey, I want to say hi to Jay Snow and Black Ghost. Let me just say, we had Soto and didn't. He's not automatic. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He does need a team built around him.
I mean, look at the Padres. They had Soto, Tatis, and Manny Machado in the same lineup, and they didn't do anything.
Yeah,
we made it to the World Series with Soto. We will miss that production, though. That's all I'm saying. Like, Soto's production will be missed in the lineup, both regular season and postseason. It'll be interesting to see the numbers he puts up in Queens this year. It'll definitely be interesting when we play them in the Subway Series. But yeah, I agree. Like, he's not an automatic win for the World Series. Absolutely not. But his production will absolutely be missed.
And I don't remember whether it was Fangraphs or where I was looking, but Soto's projections are a little bit lower this year than last year, which I found interesting. But yeah, not only all the things you said about Soto, he also got the guys lit up too, because with his production, everyone wants to replicate and do the same thing. So who is that guy in our lineup now? It really isn't anybody who's going to light up the rest of the lineup the way Soto did. And that's the guy we need, not Soto per se, but that's what we could have gotten if it wasn't February 2nd and we're having the same conversation we had on December 1st. So and Black Ghost, thanks so much for the compliment. Really appreciate that. So glad to have you here. And so let's talk about with the projections. Let's talk about the pitching for a minute. So Zips is projecting that Fried will be the best pitcher this season based on WAR. So to my point earlier, Cole's gonna have some competition about number 1 guy, number 2 guy. So that's going to be interesting to see. And his projections, Cole's projections went down a bit, but we could attribute that to the injuries, that elbow injury he had. And you know what? This is toward the other side of the career for Cole at 34. To Lori's point earlier, so he better he has to really work on some location issues. He did give up, some hits, more hits than usual. And so it's going to be interesting to see what Cole did in the off season, and what shows up, which Cole shows up in the postseason. And then there's Rodon. Um, so and Zips was not Nostradamus with this one. They're predicting Rodon, at a lower percentage because of him being an injury risk. Oh, really? Hadn't heard. Now Luis Heel. And so, speaking of sophomore slump, they're already talking about it with him, and to expect some regression from the rookie of the year. What do you think about Heel in particular, with all of the ones I just spat out?
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about it a little bit already this offseason. Super proud of Luis Heel for winning Rookie of the Year, but we saw two different versions of Luis Heel in 2024, right? We saw Rookie of the Year Luis Heel, and we saw Luis Heel who sometimes I didn't know where the hell he was throwing the ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's still a concern for me, is him figuring out his location and sometimes his velocity. I really hope this is something that Matt Blake and the other, the rest of the staff for the pitching coach, that staff is figuring out.
Yeah,
I can speak English today.
Great.
Because for him to regress would be just kind of tragic for us, right? We need all of our pitchers firing, because Max Fried was a great signing, but let's not forget he's injury prone as well.
Mm-hmm.
Carlos Rodon, he's injury prone and a freaking crybaby at that. Okay. Garrett Cole, we don't know how that injury of 2024 affected him. We don't know how 2025 is going to start out. Clark Schmidt had an injury in 2024, so we don't know where he's going to be at. And then we have Marcus Stroman, who we don't know if he's going to be in this rotation or not at this point, but he also had his own fatigue issues in 2024. So while we have very talented pitchers who can put up great numbers, we also have an injury-prone pitching staff. Yep. And maybe I shouldn't say that out loud, but if you look at it on paper, that's the reality of it. Rodon and Fried alone are very injury-prone, and those are our 2 and 3 pitchers right there. I mean,
yeah.
Well, I guess we have to wait and see.
Yeah, and one thing's for sure, we certainly did not do anything in this off season to put us on pace with the Dodgers and the Phillies. And so, and if we do get all the way like last time, it's either one of them that we're facing, unless there's a real sleeper that's going to surprise us, and that's always a possibility. So, I just worry about I'm already worrying about the end when we haven't even started. And I have to remember my catchphrase to manage my expectations, but on paper it just does not look like a solid off season from the front office to make us better and to make sure we win the next go round. And so, FJ, I agree with you. I think, I agree that Yankees should be signing assertively the international prospects, but I don't think that's more important. I think, the international players they're signing, and I know that there was another, 16-year-old kid signed very recently. That's great potentially for our future, depending on what the farm does with them. And so I do, on one side, agree with you with that. And we better be looking at the prospects from our side of the globe, and focus less energy on the other side of the globe, because we're just not going to get those Japanese phenoms. I think we have a pretty solid track record from the past couple of years, at least. I thank God Matsui chose us. but that was rare. So international prospects, absolutely. We gotta build the farm with them. Get them young, get them homegrown. But we don't have time to plant the seeds and wait for the crop. We need both. And right now, the most immediate need is the players. And so, hey, Dave, good to see you. I see that you were unimpressed with this season either. So let's now talk about the farm. FJ, thanks for the really good pivot. Um, so not everybody. I shouldn't be exaggerating, but a couple of things I read this week is talking up Lombard. And that Lombard, I'm presuming he's going to get. We'll see him in spring training. I'd be so surprised if not. But there's some writers out there really campaigning for him to make it up to the bigs in this coming season. So what do you feel about Lombard?
I feel like I personally still feel like it's way too soon. He was in single A ball last season. He's like, what is he, like 18, 19, 20 years old? I feel like he has a lot of work to do to progress up to triple A or double A before we see him in the majors. Now I do know he is a coach's kid, right? And with that being said, one of the biggest things that people talk about is coaches' kids are easier to coach, I guess, because they've been around it for so long. They know the ins and the outs. They understand things a little bit differently. But to me, that doesn't mean anything if he's not ready to be in the big leagues. I think it's way too soon. There are people in front of him that we should see first.
And speaking of people in front of him, let's talk about Spencer Jones for a second, because I didn't have time to go back into Fangraphs, but read something about his numbers a little bit on the downslope this year.
Yeah. So, okay. So what's funny about Spencer Jones is I was thinking about this earlier. Other fan bases talk about Spencer Jones and Jason Dominguez as if they are 30-year-old prospects. And I was looking at Spencer Jones earlier, and it reminded me that he was just drafted in 2022. He's yes, he's 24 years old, but he's still a prospect. And Jason Dominguez is only 21. I'm just throwing that out there for the world to hear, because I know that they like to laugh at us and make jokes. Oh, Jason Dominguez is still a prospect, yada, yada. Yeah, he's 21, okay? And Spencer Jones was just drafted in 2022. Now, if Spencer Jones could get his strikeouts under control, and I've seen some footage of him working on his batting lately, I think he's the next one ready to come up. And, not for nothing with the Yankees and their injuries and things that happen through the course of the year, maybe this is the season that we do see Spencer Jones in the big leagues. We know we'll see him in spring training. We saw him last year in spring training. He put up phenomenal numbers in spring training. So I think he will be the next guy to break that, to break through. And hopefully it's a better experience for him than it was for Oswald Peraza.
Right. And speaking of Peraza, since his name is now in the conversation as the trio at third, that base is really crowded all of a sudden. I hope they do right by him. And if they go ahead,
I could see him being a trade piece personally.
Yeah. I mean, this would be the time to do it. And it would look, the way things have been so far, it would be better for him. Bad for us, better for him. But it'd be interesting to see if that happens before the season starts, and if at the beginning of the season at least, he must be pretty low on his options. Is he down to literally like one option left?
I think this is Peraza's last option.
Yeah, so they're going to have to spend that wisely. So I'm not even sure if and when we would see him. So yeah, trading piece all over him. And so, hey, David, good to see you joining. Exactly. Before you jumped on, David, we did say that, the postseason is going to be a concern unless we see some some changes in during the season with him. I don't think we should dub him as a postseason, um, you know, as bad, a bad person to have for the postseason. But just in the recent memory, definitely not what you would want, as Girardi would say. And I'm sure that Judge being who he is, baby coming or not, and Ciara did promise us that, because when that baby comes, he is going to be back to 2017, 2016 Judge. Then let's just hang our hat on this kid coming. um, and see what happens there. But you're absolutely right. Judge isn't what our expectation would be in the World Series. But in fairness to Judge, at the same time, he hasn't had a lot of experience in the World Series. He had one experience in the World Series, and we know how that went. And so nothing to really take away from that to his system. So. I'm just really hoping we get there, and B, that he worked on some things that and did some real rewatching videos and working with his guy, his hitting guy, and
Remembers how to catch a ball.
yeah, and his field work, because he's very solid in the season. Not so much once we got to the Dodgers, that is for sure. And so, just really excited to get going with the spring training and see what we get, and see the prospects that they do bring up, and what games they play, who makes it to. I always forget the name of that part of spring training where just the prospects play from other prospects from other teams. Really, really excited to see who will be on the roster from the Yankees. So that's something to look forward to. And Lou, we can't forget the World Series, and I wouldn't say he's terrible, but he certainly cost us deeply in at least one of the games, or two, but certainly wasn't the Aaron, or five, but he's certainly not. He's
Currently in
certainly
Game 5 for sure.
Game 5, no doubt about it. But we already see we all can already envision his plaque in the Hall of Fame. He's Aaron Judge, and he's going to come back, and he's going to have a baby, and he's going to be like a whole new version of himself. So we'll see what we get from the farm. And I know there's other names that are probably going to be in the conversation that might get a shot up at some point in the bigs with us. But it's not going to be Peraza, so we'll see what happens with him. What are the odds, would you say, Ciara, as we start to wrap up, of seeing any move this week, and what you think it might be?
I don't think we'll see a move this week. I think, me personally, if there's going to be a move, it'll be right as spring training, like right as pitchers and catchers report, I think is when we would see something. And if it is any move, it's going to be something involving Marcus Stroman. I don't know what it will be, but I do think it'll involve Stroman, unfortunately for me, not for you guys. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And Black goes to saying that, we're there. That's the mentality. Always has been. World Series are a bust, but they trade away young talent.
I mean, that is so true. I don't know if Yankees fans, myself included, could handle a rebuild. Like, I'm just gonna throw this out there. So you guys know I live in Chicago. The White Sox are in complete rebuild mode. Their seasons have been tanking since 2021, and it's hard to watch. Like, I couldn't imagine watching the Yankees in rebuild mode for 5-6 seasons, especially after watching 2023. Like, that was the hardest season I've ever had to watch as a Yankees fan. And I'm going to sound so spoiled right now, but I don't think I could live through that again. I cannot live through a Jake Bauer, Billy McKinney, IKF in the outfield. Like, I can't do it, guys.
Yeah.
Whoa. Harrison Bader is a Gold Glover, okay?
No, I know, but and believe me, I love Booty Bader, but he 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 didn't he was disappointing to me in the end.
He was injury prone.
Yeah, totally. So I think that and we didn't even go to the pen. By the way, I just realized Mesa is gone, but friggin' you have 99 cents, Hal. I know you do. Just re-sign Tim Hill. Give us an easy to get lefty in the pen, for crying out loud. I don't know what he's waiting for. So, and to your point, Sierra, and it does make sense that if they make a move before pitchers and catchers, it would make a hella sense to have it be at least Tim Hill and hopefully somebody else. I just don't understand why they haven't brought him back up. They fought to the death with in arbitration with Leiter Jr. You saw that. That was a tell.
That was ridiculous.
I know they were obviously proving a point, of some sort. Like you're so on the bubble that we're going to quibble over chump change with you. But I just don't understand, and maybe I stand alone. That Hill should have been the easiest signing, and it should have happened much sooner than now. And no, we are not. We are not. We are a spoiled fan base. Sierra is not alone in that. We are spoiled, and also it's the culture of the Yankees that and the we tout ourselves as special even when we're not. And there's no way that, let me just say, even from a business point of view, this is not the front office that's going to look at the chicken bucket sales, look at the TV sales and all the marketing and promo and jersey, purchasing. There's no way they're going to rebuild. It will never happen because they rely on the bucks and they rely on fans in seat. So even if it's needed and it would help, and I'm not saying it wouldn't, this is not the franchise that's going to do it. And it wouldn't be with any of the other big boys. It wouldn't really be with the Dodgers either, or the Phillies. So no, they're just not. All right. So next time we're talking, we'll be officially in spring training mode with the pitchers and catchers. And so I'm hoping to see early on that our rotation did some work. The Rodon that came back from the mountains at the beginning of last season, maybe he went and went down deep into a canyon. Maybe he did the opposite this off season to meditate and get himself straight. And maybe we'll see a different Rodon who stays around, because we did see it at first and then it was gone. So just really interested in seeing what we're going to get, at least at the first look. Ciara, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we're so close to pitchers and catchers reporting. Beginning of the offseason, it hurt. We lost Soto, and then it looked up again, and now it looks down again. I feel like we've been on a roller coaster ride. I'm really just looking forward to baseball coming back. And you know what, guys? If you miss baseball as much as I do and you love baseball as much as I do, you should all watch the Caribbean series. It's still going. There's 2 games on today on MLB Network and ESPN Plus. You can watch Puerto Rico versus Japan, and then you can also watch Mexico versus the Dominican Republic. Just throwing that out there because I'll be watching it because I love baseball. So you guys want to watch.
Okay, that's a good plug. It's better than binge watching some shows. Just see some how the guys internationally are doing with it. And so for me, I think I just left everything out on the field in terms of my expectations, which are really in the basement. That's how I manage them. I put them way low. And but with all the anger that I have right now as well. And so just want to thank everyone that joins us live in the chat. Thanks for joining the conversation and giving us some things to talk about that are on your mind. Don't forget to like today's show. We really want to we really want that positive feedback if you want to give it. And hopefully you do. And don't forget that every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, if you're not already, and I'm pretty sure you do, but anyone listening after this broadcast, don't forget that Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you have the heat being brought by our Uncle Tats, Donald, and Rob from Pinstripe Chronicles at 10 a.m. Eastern. You have Yankified with Donald Stewart and on Fridays and or Saturdays. So make sure to subscribe and ask for notifications so that you don't miss that. And coming soon is a new show from Ciara and me that will also include our friend Spencer, that many of you know. Those of you that have been with us for a long time, you know he's our trivia guy, full of Yankee history knowledge, and we'll talk a little bit more in next week about that show. So Pinstripe Chronicles is building, not rebuilding, but building more and more to bring you great content. So as always, from Ciara and me, we appreciate you, and you'll always have a reserved seat with us right here on the upper deck. And I'm going to say, let's go, Cashman! Please, either go or go and sign some deals. Take care, everybody.